What if I told you that everything you need to transform your financial life is hidden in a single verse of the Bible? Yes, just as you heard it. Most people struggle with their finances because they focus only on what they can receive, but they ignore a powerful spiritual key that has already changed the lives of thousands. The curious thing is that this principle is not just about money. It's about a complete change in the way you view your resources, your purpose, and your blessings. And here comes the most surprising part. Most people have read it, but few truly understand it. This verse is not just a motivational phrase, it's a revelation of how biblical prosperity actually works. Today, I'm going to teach you how to apply it in both a practical and spiritual way, and I assure you that by the end of this video, you'll see how this knowledge can change everything for you. But before we begin, I want to ask you something. Subscribe to the channel. Our goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of December, and together we can help more people discover these transformative principles. Now, I want you to eliminate any distractions, close other tabs, silence your phone, and pay close attention. What you're about to learn might be what you've been searching for all along. And pay special attention to the final point, because the ending will surprise you. It might be the missing piece to unlock the flow of blessings in your life. A long time ago, a young king asked for wisdom, not wealth or fame. Solomon understood that wisdom was the foundation for everything else. God, impressed by his humility, granted him not only wisdom but also unimaginable riches and prosperity. The story of Solomon teaches us that true prosperity begins with a generous heart and a willingness to give. Just as Solomon blessed his nation, God expects what we have to be used to bless others, opening doors to receive even more. The Bible says it clearly, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Acts 20:35. This isn't just a nice phrase, it's a deep spiritual principle that, when understood, transforms lives. This verse contains a powerful promise. Generosity is the path to abundance, because no one can give unless they have first received. And the more we give, the more we receive. Generosity activates the cycle of biblical prosperity. Some people live like dams, accumulating and hoarding everything they receive, while others flow like rivers, allowing blessings to pass through them to reach more people. But here's a crucial detail. A dam eventually stops receiving because there's no more space to store anything. So think about this. Are we living like flowing rivers or stagnant dams? In a world where so many struggle to find financial stability, this verse highlights a key truth. It's not just about the physical act of giving, but about a spiritual positioning. The Bible teaches us that God's financial promises are directly connected to our willingness to share and to practice justice. That's why many people don't experience biblical financial abundance. They're waiting for something without first releasing what they already have in their hands. Think about the stories of people who understood this principle. Entrepreneurs who started with little but prospered because they applied the principle of giving, even when it seemed like everything was lost. The act of giving in faith opened the doors to miracles. How many times has God placed something in your hands and you held onto it out of fear of losing it? How many times have you ignored the opportunity to be a channel of blessing for others? We all face daily challenges, doubts, and anxieties, especially when money is tight. But here's the truth. God doesn't call you to give because He needs it. He calls you to give because He wants to change you. It's an invitation to live like Solomon, who fully trusted that God was his infinite source of provision. As you reflect on this, remember, the keys to abundance are not in what you hold on to, but in what you release with faith. True prosperity begins when we understand that everything we have comes from God, and that by giving, we align ourselves with His plan to be a blessing in the lives of others. If you need prayer for your finances or for any situation you're facing, leave your request in the comments. We're here to support you in prayer, believing that God can transform your life. Imagine a river flowing with strength, bringing life along its path. Now imagine a dam holding all the water it receives without letting it flow. Which one do you think has a greater purpose? This is the principle of giving to receive. Just as a river is never left dry because it allows the water to flow, our lives become full when we learn to release and share what we have. But when we act like dams, accumulating and hoarding, we inevitably block the blessing. The verse in Proverbs 11:25 sums it up perfectly. A generous soul will prosper, and he who refreshes others will also be refreshed. This isn't just spiritual poetry, it's a truth that transforms lives. Those who choose to give don't just see their own needs met, they also experience a peace and satisfaction that money alone can never offer. It's a principle proven by generations, and it always works. In everyday life, this concept is everywhere. Companies that share their resources and reinvest in meaningful causes tend to prosper. Individuals who give their time, ideas, or finances to others generate unexpected opportunities and deep connections. It's no coincidence. Giving connects us with God's purpose for our lives, opening doors we could never open on our own. Think about the story of Andrew Carnegie, a man who built one of the greatest fortunes of his time and then dedicated his life to giving. He created libraries, educational institutions, and projects that transformed entire communities. Carnegie understood that wealth without purpose was empty. He turned his resources into a river of blessings that continues to flow even after his death. However, many of us live with a scarcity mindset. We hold on to the little we have, fearing it will never be enough. But that mindset is a trap. Just like a dam, we disconnect from the flow of abundance. On the other hand, when we give, we declare through our actions that we trust in a God who is unlimited in resources and generosity. Giving doesn't always have to be about money. Sometimes it's your time, your skills, or simply a listening ear. But here's the secret. The more you give, the more your capacity to receive grows. It's a virtuous cycle that reflects God's design. When we give, we become part of His work, bringing light and hope to those who need it most. Every time you choose to share, you're breaking chains of fear and spiritual poverty. You're opening your life to the inexhaustible flow of God. So, are we ready to stop being dams and start becoming rivers? If you're breathing, you've already received something from God. The simple fact that you're alive is proof of His generosity. But how often do we focus on what we lack instead of giving thanks for what we already have? The truth is that gratitude is the foundation of prosperity. Recognizing what we've received frees us from anxiety and prepares us to give joyfully. The Bible makes it clear in Luke 6:38, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap." When we give thanks, something powerful happens. We stop seeing our limitations and begin to see possibilities. Those who give don't do it because they have. It's because they recognize that what they have is not theirs, but a gift from God. That change in perspective transforms us from mere receivers to collaborators with Him. If you have received, then you have the privilege of participating in the work of blessing others. An example of this truth is the story of John D. Rockefeller, who began tithing from the little he earned. As a young worker, he didn't wait to be rich to give. He simply believed that the little in his hands could multiply when used for others. And what's incredible is that his generosity not only benefited others, but also led him to become one of the richest men of his time. Rockefeller understood that by giving, he became a river, not a dam. But here lies a dilemma many of us face. How can we give when we feel we don't have enough? The answer is simple but challenging. Everything begins with gratitude. Giving is not about the amount, it's about trust. When we recognize what we've received, we realize there's always something we can share, even in the hardest moments. God doesn't call us to give because He needs what we have. He calls us to give because we need to trust in Him. Every act of generosity reminds us that our provision doesn't depend on our circumstances, it depends on His faithfulness. It's an act of faith that breaks chains of fear and connects us to His abundance. Gratitude doesn't just change the way we think, it opens the door to more blessings. It's a principle that seems to go against human logic. The more you give, the more you receive. But it's not just about money. It's also about time, words of encouragement, and acts of love. Everything you sow, you will eventually reap. So next time you feel like you have nothing to offer, remember this: if you're breathing, you've already received. And if you've already received, you can give. It's a divine cycle designed to fill you with peace and purpose. Have you ever felt stuck, like blessings just aren't reaching your life? Many times the cause lies in something we don't see on the surface: the habit of holding back, living like a dam. Hoarding and storing everything out of fear of losing it might seem logical, but in the long run, it leads to scarcity. A dam that doesn't allow the water to flow eventually becomes stagnant. In contrast, a river that gives constantly never stops receiving. This mindset of hoarding is deeply tied to fear. We think that if we let go of the little we have, there will never be more. But here's the truth: God cannot fill closed hands. When we cling tightly, we limit our ability to receive. The Bible teaches powerful principles about finances and generosity. For example, in Proverbs 11:24 we are told, "One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what is right, only to come to poverty." The problem with living like a dam is not just material, it's also spiritual. We disconnect from our purpose of being channels of blessing. Many people work hard, save, invest, and still feel empty. Why? Because they're focused on accumulating instead of sharing. God's true promises for finances are designed to flow through us, not to stop with us. History gives us great examples. Think about the early days of Amazon, when Jeff Bezos prioritized improving the customer experience over maximizing short-term profits. It was a risky decision, but that mindset of giving value first turned Amazon into one of the most prosperous companies in the world. Bezos understood that flow, not retention, is the key to growth. However, many of us fall into the scarcity mindset. We cling to the little we have, thinking we're being responsible. But here's the secret: holding on to what God has given you is not wisdom. It's a lack of trust, and distrust closes the door to abundance. Instead of asking, "How much can I keep?" ask yourself, "What can I give today to make room for more?" Living like a river doesn't mean being reckless. It means trusting that God is your source. It means giving what you can, even when it seems like you don't have much. Remember, the river flows because it's connected to a greater source. We too are like rivers when we recognize that everything we have comes from Him. Every time you choose to give something, something changes within you. You're declaring that you don't depend on your own resources, but on a God who can do a lot with little. So today, stop living like a dam, start flowing like a river, and watch how God transforms your life into a channel of blessings. Now that we understand the importance of flowing like a river, an inevitable question arises. How can we give when we're going through times of scarcity? It's easy to be generous when everything's going well, but hard times are the true test of faith. It's in those moments when giving becomes a radical act of trust in God, a declaration that our provision does not depend on our circumstances, but on His faithfulness. The Bible gives us a powerful, Example in the story of the widow of Zarephath, 1 Kings 17. In the middle of a severe drought, this woman had only a handful of flour and a little oil. It was all she had left to feed her son before dying of hunger. But the prophet Elijah asked her for something unthinkable, to make a piece of bread for him first. The widow could have kept the little she had, but she chose to trust. Her generosity unleashed a miracle. The oil and the flour never ran out. Do you feel like that widow? Looking at your resources and thinking they won't be enough? It's natural. We've all been there, counting every cent, battling the fear of not having enough for tomorrow. But here's the truth. The little in your hands, given with faith, becomes much in God's hands. Giving in hard times is not losing. It's sowing in the soil of divine provision. There's something transformational in choosing to give when it seems like you have nothing. It's like an act of rebellion against fear and anxiety. When we give, we're not just confronting our doubts, we're sending a clear message to heaven. We trust that God is our source. He is not limited by our bank accounts, our debts, or our daily struggles. This doesn't mean we should be reckless or give beyond our means. Generosity should always be guided by wisdom. However, even in the darkest moments, there's always something we can share. Time, skills, words of encouragement. When we give, even the smallest things, we are sowing hope, both in our lives and in the lives of others. Think about how small acts of generosity have a deep impact. A kind word can change someone's day. A gesture of help can open an unexpected door. Giving doesn't only affect the person who receives, it transforms the one who gives. It makes us more open, more connected with others, and most importantly, more aligned with the heart of God. Fine. Today you find yourself in the middle of a financial or emotional storm. Remember this: giving is not about how much you have, it's about how much you trust. God is looking for people who are willing to release what they have, not to take from them, but to fill them with something better. Your generosity, even in times of difficulty, is a key that can open doors you didn't expect. In a world where competition and accumulation seem to be the norm, the principle of "it is better to give than to receive" may seem outdated or even illogical. Yet today's greatest successes are built on that very principle. Living with generosity not only brings spiritual benefits, but also practical and tangible ones. When you understand how to apply this principle in your daily life, you begin to unlock a steady flow of opportunities, resources, and connections. Take the example of smart investing. Many of the most successful entrepreneurs don't hoard their initial profits, they reinvest them. This not only multiplies their resources, it creates long-term impact. Applying this principle to your personal finances means not only saving for yourself, but also investing in causes, projects, or people that create mutual benefit. The Bible calls this sowing to reap, and this principle is just as relevant today. Passive income is another modern example that reflects this principle. Think about how investments in property or well-managed businesses generate consistent income over time. This allows people not only to cover their needs, but also to have room to be generous. By sharing part of what they earn, they multiply their impact and often see unexpected returns. It's a direct reflection of God's promises for finances, where generosity opens doors that effort alone cannot. But generosity isn't limited to money. Today's thriving companies like Patagonia understand that creating value goes beyond profit. They invest a significant percentage of their earnings in environmental causes, earning customer loyalty and building a reputation that spans generations. This proves that divine justice and prosperity go hand in hand when we put resources in service of a greater purpose. In your daily life, this principle can take many forms. It could be a small gesture, like helping a co-worker with their task or taking time to comfort someone who needs it. Generosity creates an ecosystem where everyone thrives. Because when you give, you build relationships and generate trust. And those connections often turn into opportunities you never imagined. Modern society often pushes us to prioritize our own needs and protect ourselves. But true biblical prosperity is not just about what you earn. It's about how you use what you have to impact others. It's like a farmer who, instead of storing his entire harvest, chooses to sow part of it. That seed may seem like a loss at first, but over time, it bears abundant fruit. When we live according to this principle, something changes within us. Generosity frees us from the fear of losing and connects us with an infinite source, God. He promises in His Word that biblical financial abundance is the result of a life aligned with His principles. Giving is the key that unlocks resources, ideas, and connections. Being generous not only transforms your life, it also impacts everyone around you. Think about this. Every act of generosity, no matter how small, is a seed you plant in the life of others. But more than that, generosity inspires. Generous people have the ability to mobilize others, to create a movement that transcends the moment and leaves a lasting legacy. This is leadership in its purest form, influencing through example, not just words. A generous leader doesn't withhold knowledge, resources, or time. Look at the example of Solomon, who used his wealth and wisdom to build the temple, a place that symbolized the connection between God and His people. Solomon understood that his prosperity wasn't just for his own benefit, but to serve an entire generation. His legacy is still remembered, not because he accumulated riches, but because he used them with purpose. In the modern world, a remarkable example is Chuck Feeney, the entrepreneur who donated nearly his entire fortune during his lifetime, investing in education, healthcare, and humanitarian causes. Though he could have lived like an extravagant millionaire, he chose to lead by giving. Feeney didn't just leave behind a tangible impact, he inspired other billionaires to commit to philanthropy. This proves that generosity doesn't just transform individual lives, it transforms entire communities. But what does this have to do with you? More than you think. You don't have to be rich to be a generous leader. Every time you choose to give, you're showing others a different path. When you share your resources, your ideas, or even your words of encouragement, you're influencing those around you. You're making it clear that there is a greater purpose in everything we do. Generous leadership has a multiplying effect. When you give, others are inspired to do the same. It's like lighting a candle. Your flame doesn't go out by sharing it, but the room fills with more light. This principle is just as powerful in personal relationships, at work, and in the community. Every act of generosity has the potential to build something greater than ourselves. God calls us not only to receive blessings, but to be channels of blessing. When we embrace this calling, we don't just experience His abundance. We become His instruments to transform lives. That is the essence of biblical prosperity. It's not about how much you have. It's about how much impact you create with what you have. Imagine what would happen if more people lived by this principle. If each of us chose to give more than we receive, we could change families, communities, and even nations. It's an invitation to think big, to lead with heart, and to allow God to use us for His purpose. Write in the comments, "I am a channel of blessing to others." Declare this truth in faith, believing that God will use you to impact lives, and that as you give, He will multiply what you have in your hands to fulfill His purpose. Generosity goes far beyond finances. Yes, giving money is an important way to impact lives, but we often underestimate the power of other forms of giving. Our time, our skills, our words. These actions, though invisible to others, have eternal impact. Giving is not just an act of obedience, it's an act of transformation, both for the one who receives and for the one who gives. Think of the story of Barnabas, known as the son of encouragement, in Acts 4:36-37. He didn't just sell property to support the early believers. He also dedicated his life to walking alongside and mentoring others like Paul. Barnabas didn't limit his generosity to material resources. He invested his time and heart into people. He was a leader who impacted generations through his generosity, proving that giving goes far beyond money. In everyday life, giving beyond money can mean simple but powerful things. Listening to someone who needs to be heard, taking time to teach something you know, or using your talents to help solve a problem. These gestures have the power to build deep relationships, sow hope, and show God's love in action. Giving also transforms us internally. It frees us from the scarcity mindset and connects us to a greater purpose. When you choose to invest in other people, you are participating in the work of God. You are saying, "I will not only receive, I will be part of the divine plan to bless the world." And that act of faith opens doors and creates a cycle of abundance that never ends. The emotional and spiritual impact of giving is immense. Studies show that people who help others experience more happiness and a greater sense of purpose in their lives. Why? Because giving reflects the heart of the Creator. He designed the world so that blessings would flow. And when we give, we align with His design, becoming His image to those around us. Now, giving beyond money also means forming a legacy. When you invest in people, your impact multiplies. It's not just about what you achieve. It's about the lives you touch and how you inspire others to follow the same path. That's the key to generous leadership, creating an impact that transcends. So if you've ever thought, "I have nothing to give," remember this: your time, your words, your willingness to listen, these are powerful seeds. God can use what you have in your hands, no matter how small it seems, to change lives. The true power of giving isn't in the amount. It's in the intention. Now that we've explored this powerful verse and the principles surrounding it, it's time to reflect on how you can apply them in your daily life. It's not just about learning. It's about taking action. Every teaching, every biblical example invites us to live in a way that honors God and transforms our perspective on the resources He's given us. For example, "It is more blessed to give than to receive" is not just spiritual advice. It's an invitation to be a river that flows, carrying blessings to those around us. Think about how you can begin to be more generous today, not just with your finances, but with your time, your words, and your talents. What small steps can you take to align your life with this eternal principle? Great men of faith like Solomon, and even modern figures like Chuck Feeney, show us that true biblical financial abundance comes from using what we have to impact others. This principle is just as powerful today as it was in biblical times. By applying these principles, you are inviting God to pour out His abundance upon you, because He knows that what you receive will flow toward others. And if you still feel uncertain about where to start, I invite you to take this message as a personal challenge. Take a step in faith, trust that God will provide, and watch how He works in your life. It doesn't matter how small your action may be. What matters is the heart behind it. By the way, if you like this video, I recommend watching the next one. What the book? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People doesn't tell you, and how the Bible completes the message. In that video, you'll learn how God's Word takes already successful principles to a higher level. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the upcoming content. May God bless you in every area of your life and fill you with His wisdom, His peace, and His provision.